You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Hey everybody, welcome to the very first interview I'm conducting here on Secret Sonics, a brand new music podcast where we're going to be exploring the creative side of music production. My first interviewee is a good friend of mine, Mendy Portnoy, originally from Manchester, England. I was going to say Manchester, London, and that does not make any sense. He's a music producer and piano player, and we go back many years, and we've done a lot of collaborative work together. Mendy has played keys on a lot of my production, and I've done some mixing and bass work for Mendy's productions, so we have a great working relationship, and I'm happy to have him here. According to his bio on Sound Better, Mendy is a piano keys player and producer originally from the UK, currently based in Jerusalem, Israel. He has not won any Grammy Awards, but plays everything straight from the soul and with feeling, and in a variety of styles and genres. And yeah, man. So welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Ben. This is so cool.
Yeah. I really wanted to have you on as the first guest because we have such a great working relationship, and I love what you do. And
Thank you, man.
Yeah. So we'll just jump right into it. Tell us a bit about how you got started getting involved in music production.
That is a very good question. I'm just trying to dig as far back as I can remember, and I think when I was about 14, my brother Srully and I, we both put together all of our funds, which weren't that it wasn't that much money at the time, but decided we were going to buy a computer together. And I guess it was probably around 12, 13 years ago or something. So we put together, I think it was a couple of £1,000, and whilst nowadays that can actually get you some really good gear, back then it wasn't quite the same. But we basically bought a computer and a sound card and I think a couple of monitors, a condenser mic, the basics so that we could record from home. Anyway, it was very exciting, and we kind of took all this stuff to the attic, and we recorded a bunch of really bad sounding stuff. I think it came with like a really basic version of Cubase, and I had this like old big Technics piano, and I would just record all the sounds like directly in, and everything sounded terrible. But the more I think about it, the more I kind of realized that the vision on a production level of what I wanted to do was kind of there. I just had no idea how to execute it. So, I was playing in the drums and playing in the bass, and, we tracked some like harmonies and stuff.
Were you drawn to that, like the technical process or more the creative process, or both?
I think it's both, really. I get in trouble with my wife for this a lot of the time, but I can be walking down the road and everything kind of looks normal, but actually my head is just in a completely different place, and I'm imagining like, I'll be thinking about some song and imagining the strings or the bass line or something. Nice. And then she will slowly kind of knock on my head and say, hello, are you there? So I've always kind of wanted to kind of take the things from my head and put them out. So
totally.
I think that's, I think I've waffled so much, I've gone far from the question, but that's kind of where it started for me. So.
Amazing. Was there a particular song or album that really opened up your mind to the possibilities of what could be accomplished?
I'm not sure. I don't think I actually started. I don't think I started listening to music like from a production point of view till a little bit later on. Mm-hmm. It wasn't till I got further into creating music myself where I was like, oh, I wonder how they did that there. And now almost it's kind of like it's hard for me to listen to a song and just listen to it, as opposed to be like, I wonder how
it. Yeah.
I wonder how they got that drum sound, or I wonder how they did that or that. Yeah, no, I can't think of one album in particular, but yeah, not that I can think of.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so let's kind of get a little bit into your process of how you're working. When an artist approaches you to work on a song, what are some of the criteria you look for in terms of gauging their potential?
I guess that there's nowadays, the first thing you can always do is the quick online stalking session.
Sure.
So it's normally straight to YouTube or something like that. I think it's very rare to come across something where it's like, oh, I can't do that. And I think it's a very interesting point actually, because on the one hand, that anything that comes anywhere near us that says anything to do with music, we should be all over and want to do. At the same time, I feel like, and this just doesn't come from like a fluffy, trying to be nice kind of place, but I genuinely believe that if you don't connect to something, if it doesn't move you in some kind of way, then I think to musically produce it is a very difficult thing to do, and I'm not sure. It doesn't mean like technically you can't do it, but I think in order to bring the best out of the song, I think you really have to somewhat connect to it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't think, I don't have any kind of strict
criteria.
Criteria or system. If someone comes to me with a song and I genuinely feel that I'm able to help them take this piece of music and I guess wrap it up for the world to consume in a nice little gift package, which in a way is kind of what production is, then I'll do it,
So you just kind of have like a feeling of this is something I could work with or not.
Yeah, it's looking for a connection, some kind of something. A lot of the time, and this is also why whenever I speak to people in the beginning, I ask them for the raw, like I want a really raw demo. I don't want a half-produced version or something that someone else did or something that you once tried. Or I really want to just hear the song
naked.
Yeah, and then that kind of allows you to really
envision
different things as opposed to be swayed one way or the other.
And is there anything that you're listening for specifically the first time you hear a song?
Not really. I mean, I guess I've done some pretty out there quirky projects where the whole concept of song form is just it's not there. I've done spoken word kind of things where there is music as well, but like there would be no point in those situations talking about verse, chorus, bridge, any
basic
of that stuff.
Arrangement stuff.
But at the same time, especially if it's a pop song, I kind of like just form-wise for it to make sense. I was actually working on something quite recently with someone where unbelievable vocalist, and it was like the first verse, then the chorus, and then for some reason immediately after the first chorus, it kind of went to what felt to me like a C part, or I think it was also then it was kind of like a spoken word thing. And for me, it was like, okay, this is really cool, but at the end of the day, if we're doing a pop song, maybe what makes the most sense is to, give them the verse at least one more time so that they, people can.
Yeah.
So just little things like that, making sure that like, in the sense, in the context of really building the song so that there's a beginning, middle and end and a climax. Other than that, it's art, so people can do whatever they want, really.
Yeah, sure. That's awesome. Do you have a go-to instrument or a sound bake that you kind of use to get the ball rolling, or is it more of a spur of the moment kind of thing?
It's definitely spur of the moment a lot of the time. Just because you mentioned, maybe you didn't mention, but in terms of workflow, one of the things I like to do after hearing a demo is when we kind of figure out the BPM. Sorry, let me backtrack. A lot of the people I work with are international clients, or people who, I work with people in America or the UK. And so after I've heard the initial demo, a lot of the time I ask them to send me a voice recording, and it can be on WhatsApp, or it could be a phone recording or whatever. It doesn't have to be high quality. I ask them to put a metronome in their ear, so they can have that coming from the computer or something. They can just sing the song through once, so that just as a basis, like I always have like the artist there with me in one form or another. So it might not be the final vocal track. Obviously, that normally comes a bit later on, but I want that there so that every decision I make from the beginning is based on that. So whether or not I do a guide track with a piano, or I'm inspired to use a percussion sample or whatever it is, that's kind of always running along with me. I'm a piano player, so keys is obviously what comes naturally to me. But a lot of it, I actually use Native Instruments. They've got an instrument called strummed acoustic, which obviously, I mean, it's actually great, but it would never replace a real guitarist. But for me, there are some folky things where it's like from the get-go, I need to just hear what it sounds like with guitar.
Yeah, totally.
And I can play the guitar really badly. So
You're not bad at the ukulele, though.
Yeah. So I sometimes I use that, and but yeah, I don't really. For me, as long as there's I've got a set of chords running along with it, at least from the beginning, I can build off of that.
Mm-hmm. So it's like important to get like the harmonic structure up and running.
Yeah,
the beginning.
even that, it's all subject to change, and a lot of the time the chord, I'll make chord decisions later on. But essentially, what I really try to do from early on is be able to see the form of the song from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of my production decisions become based on that. So
it sounds like you're starting off. Okay, what's the melody? What's the key? What's the rhythm?
BPM, yeah.
The BPM, and then you kind of build a structure of A to Z. Intro, verse, chorus, etc.
Basically, it's like I want to work with a blank canvas, but I need to know how big the canvas is. So before I start painting, so just laying out the chords at the beginning, that's what I'm really doing, and then I can say, okay, this 3-minute 30 or 4-minute thing or however long. I work in Logic, and I like to use markers, just intro verse.
Totally.
And then I kind of take it from there.
Amazing. So what kind of happens after that once you have like the arrangement down?
So what happens then is I kind of have like a session, which I guess I would call creating a vibe. Mm-hmm. Which is where I kind of imagine the song in a few different settings. And, it's kind of crazy when you have the same vocal take can be set to so many different kinds of things. So I kind of, imagine, a lot of the time it happens a lot quicker. I'm like, okay, this is clearly an R&B kind of thing, and this is where that has to go. And sometimes I'll try out a few different things to just see what sits right. And especially with people I work with remotely, I like to, I very much like to I guess you'd call it like a game of ping pong. Mm-hmm. But I'm always sending, like every significant step forward, I'm in touch.
You
and
sound
I'm
like a rough.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that applies to slightly later on. But for this beginning stage, it's like, okay, this is 2 or 3 potential options. What speaks to you the most? And obviously, from the point that decision's made, it can still be varied and go slightly left or slightly right. But
that's really interesting.
Yeah,
I've had that kind of experience with like graphic designers, where they'll be like, okay, these are like 3 different logo styles we could do with your logo name, with your name. And,
I mean,
you kind of choose a direction based on that.
For sure.
And I've never thought about doing that with a music production. That's really interesting.
Yeah, again, I mean, there are some people who come in and they know from the get-go, like they're like, this is what I want.
Right, they give you like a reference track.
Yeah, and then obviously then there isn't really a need, and I mean, there are other creative decisions that those people also need help with further down the line. But
sure,
a lot of the people ultimately who create music and want to produce music with you, a lot of the time they don't know anything about it. Some of the most talented singers, songwriters,
they need an education.
Yeah, and they sound great sitting there with just a guitar, and they just need help, advice. It's can be scary.
Yeah, totally. Is there anything in particular that will influence your decisions when it comes to structure and arrangement?
Well, I mean, obviously the genre of the song is one thing. So, if someone's clearly going for a pop song, and they, it's important for them to, I don't know if I would say, reach a big audience or whatever it is, then obviously you want to try and keep it somewhat short. Especially today, people
to the point.
Yeah, I mean, across every, I guess, field of media, that's just how we have to think. They're saying now for Instagram and Facebook, all ads should be like no longer than 15 seconds, and
wow,
yeah, our attention span is like, it's very, very low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The downside of all the good.